Thank you, Chairwoman Bass. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being part of this important discussion. It's interesting to hear people say, I wonder what this process is, or what refugees are like in the United States. But as a refugee and as someone who's gone through the process of vetting, I know the many years my family waited in a refugee camp to be able to resettle in the United States. And I know with certainty the kind of anxieties that a lot of families have as they await the opportunity to get resettled and start a new life. I just wanted to kind of look at and follow with the line of questioning that Congresswoman Wild had around what happens when we lower the refugee cap here, and how that could lead to other countries following pursuit and lowering the cap of refugees that they welcome into their own countries. And we're at risk of that because when we lead, others follow. And I think we're setting a really bad example around the world right now. But I wanted to also uplift what these particular policies that this administration has is really all about. According to the refugee processing portal, 68.1% of the 22,491 refugees admitted in 2018 were Christians. 15.5 were Muslim. 9.3 were animist, Buddhist, or Hindu. Only 369 refugees were admitted from the countries included in the modified travel ban or the Muslim ban. The breakdown is as such. From Chad, only one refugee was admitted who was Muslim, and in totality, only one person. In Iran, 41 were admitted. Of that 41, 23 were Christians, 8 Muslims, 5 Baha'i, and 3 Siberian Mendinian, 1 Jewish, and 1 had not declared a faith. From Libya, we only admitted 1 person, and that person was Muslim. From North Korea, we admitted 5, 4 Christians, 1 Buddhist. From Syria, we admitted 62, 42 were Muslim, 20 were Christians. From Somalia, we admitted 257. Venezuela, 0, and 2 from Yemen. So when we think about and we consider the harsh crackdowns on asylum seekers from Central America, the policy that is the Muslim ban, and the sharp drop in the refugee resettlement during this administration, do you, Mr. Schwartz, agree that the president's immigration policies are not really based on whether we favor legal or illegal, whether it is about safety and security, but it's rather about the kind of people that we think we should be welcoming into this country?
I am deeply concerned, Representative Omar, as the former dean of a public affairs school that sits in your district, that hosted at our school many Somali students. I am concerned about the dramatic decline in resettlement of refugees from Muslim-majority countries. I think it merits the scrutiny of the Congress, and it is a source of concern. I think it relates, generally speaking, to, this isn't a mystery. The administration and the president has said that he doesn't really want the United States to be resettling very many refugees. I mean, it is what it is. The reason I think this happens, and this relates to the security question, is, look, security screening is very important. And the FBI is involved in it, the intelligence community is involved in it, the Department of Homeland Security is involved in it. It can be a complete obstacle to resettlement of refugees from Muslim-majority countries, or it doesn't have to be. And the difference is leadership. If the President of the United States said to those agencies, this has to work, and I am going to throw the resources necessary in terms of adjudicators, in terms of intelligence, etc., to meet the objective of resettling reasonable numbers of these populations, it would happen. But it's not happening because this administration is just not interested in that outcome, so it's not prepared to devote the resources necessary to get through the process. That is what's happening. And I think it is very unfortunate. As a practical matter, the way Congress can address the resettlement issue, at this point in this administration, because of the plenary authority of the President to decide how many refugees are coming in every year, the way you can address it is the way I suggested in my testimony. Get consensus on a Central American refugee resettlement program or some resettlement program and legislate it. And that's how you can affect it. But with the President's posture on this issue and his untrammeled authority to decide how many people are going to come in, the Congress is not going to significantly alter that process. It's just not going to happen. And it's tragic, and it's a tragedy, and it speaks poorly about who we are as a country, but it is what it is.
So sometimes there are a lot of conversations we have that are not really rooted in fact. There are people within my home state of Minnesota who, will say there are thousands of Somalis coming in every single day being resettled without your knowledge. The president himself was unfortunately in my state and said something to that regard. And in the last year, one Somali family was resettled in our state. But I also want to go back to a statement that was made on the committee and just kind of have some facts be used to address that. The ISIS pride was mentioned, and it is a fact that the ISIS pride was not a refugee that was resettled in this country. It is a fact that she was not an immigrant, but an American born to a family of diplomats. And so I would love to hear from you, Mr. Schultz, or any of the panelists, when you stated earlier that refugees are the most vetted and have not been part of causing terror or taking American lives in this country. Can you actually address that with some actual facts? Do you have numbers or some things to help us cleanse us of this hateful rhetoric that we have developed in thinking that people who are coming to this country to seek a new life are the ones that are causing us harm, and one that is making our communities unsafe and turning us against each other? Because for the most of Minnesotans who are of refugee background, most of us came as children. And we went through years of vetting and went through the process of becoming citizen. I mean, we have been fingerprinted, tested more than any American has ever been who's born in this country. And so it is saddens me, and it's frustrating really and angering to hear people say that we are a threat to society when we are tested and policed and surveilled more than any member of our society. So can you please help me out and put some facts to this?
Well, actually, we've gone over on time, so if one of you want to briefly respond, and then I want to make a few comments before I move on to Ms. Houlihan.
Well, just very briefly, I think security screening is legitimate, but I also think policy has to be evidence-based. I think if you have an immigration program, and we have an immigration program, some of the people who come into your country are going to commit crimes at lower rates than Native Americans but that's going to happen. So policy has to be evidence-based. And I think we have durable and responsible screening procedures. The Cato Institute, a conservative think tank in Washington, estimated that between 1975 and 2015, the likelihood of an American losing their lives at the hands of a refugee was 1 in 3.64 billion, which means almost non-existent. And so I think policy has to be evidence-based. We have to have responsible screening procedures, but policies have to be evidence-based.